가달라메 가서 다 영시사디 지 지주기 미 로마즈 지미기 타네 다디 영시 고도스네 타셔요나 그 다가 타셔서 버다
July 6, 2025, a landmark day not just for Tibetans, but for millions across the world. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, the revered symbol of compassion, peace and resistance, turns 90. His journey from a village in the Tibet to the halls of the Nobel Peace Prize is one of faith, exile, resilience and global spiritual leadership. But behind the celebrations lies a growing anxiety. Tibet's future remains uncertain, and so does the future of the Dalai Lama institution itself. Born on July 6, 1935 to a farming family in the village of Taktser, he was just 2 when High Lamas identified him as the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama. He was given a name as long as his destiny. Jetsun Jomphel Engawang Lobsang Yeshi Tenzin Gyatso. Holy Lord, gentle glory, compassionate, defender of the faith and ocean of wisdom. Taken to the 1,000-room Potala Palace in Lhasa, he was trained in Buddhist philosophy, metaphysics and governance. But childhood ended abruptly in 1950 when the Chinese army invaded Tibet. At just 15, he was enthroned as head of state. 9 years later, on March 10, 1959, a massive uprising erupted in Lhasa. It was crushed. The Dalai Lama fled. It took him 13 harrowing days to cross the Himalayas. He reached India, never to return to Tibet. In the quiet hill town of Dharamsala, the Dalai Lama rebuilt his shattered nation in exile. Thousands of Tibetans followed. They preserved language, rituals, culture, and above all, hope. He launched a global campaign for Tibet, not demanding independence, but seeking a middle way, genuine autonomy under Chinese sovereignty. His moral authority grew. In 1989, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for advocating reconciliation despite brutal oppression. Clad in maroon robes, simple sandals, and wide-rimmed glasses, he became an unlikely celebrity. His mischief and humor were magnetic. Once he even joked that he might reincarnate as a blonde woman. But Beijing remained unmoved, branding him a separatist and a wolf in monk's robes. He is more than a spiritual icon. The Dalai Lama is a philosopher, an environmentalist, a peacemaker. He has authored dozens of books on meditation, ethics, politics, happiness, and even science. With his 90th birthday, the world awaited his decision. Would there be a 15th Dalai Lama? That answer has now arrived. The Dalai Lama announced on July 2nd that the 600-year-old Tibetan spiritual institution will continue after his death, a landmark reassurance for Tibetans in exile and Buddhist followers worldwide. He said his office, the India-based Garden Fortrang Trust, would have exclusive responsibility for identifying his successor, even as China insisted it would.
Dalai 가서 오다 영시사디 지 지주기 미 로마즈 지미구타네 다디 영시시 고도스네 타셔요나 다가 타셔셔로다 경호군이 너림 문지 제조 대 자동가만 나세신 영시 문지기 제그 경구소 달라라메 로장 간대포장 이지계 이지계제 왕대 gen진 남도 여보다 셰수저 티슈 미소게 네오는 조가야 매버 제기 꾸기.
He said he had received countless appeals over the past 14 years from Tibetans in exile across the Himalayas, from Mongolia, Russia, China, and even from within Tibet, urging him to let the institution continue. China, meanwhile, reiterated its claim. The reincarnation of the Dalai Lama must be approved by the central government. It says this would involve drawing lots from a golden urn, a method Beijing insists upon, but the Dalai Lama calls spiritually hollow. How do you identify the reincarnation of a spiritual leader? The process is part faith, part mysticism, part ritual. Tibetan Buddhists believe the Dalai Lama is a reincarnation of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. The current Dalai Lama was chosen after passing tests recognizing objects of his predecessor as a toddler. Other methods include consulting oracles, especially Nichang, a trance medium of protected deity Doje Drakden, reading signs and visions such as rainbows or dreams, divination rituals, names inside dough balls, the golden urn, a practice enforced by Chinese emperors and now controversially held by Beijing. Some Dalai Lamas were hidden during turbulent times. One pretended to be on retreat for 15 years. Another wore eyeshadow to impersonate the deceased leader for visitors. Secrecy has always protected authenticity. Now it must shield against political manipulation. Interestingly, the Dalai Lama earlier said he will leave clear written instructions for the future, but he has alternatively suggested his successor could be a girl or an insect, or that his spirit could transfer or emanate to an adult. In Dharamshala and beyond, Tibetans reflect with pride and worry. For nearly 90 years, the Dalai Lama has served as a symbol, but to those closest to him, he remains a humble monk. His longtime translator, Thupten Jinpa, describes the importance of the Dalai Lama.
The idea of a world where there is no Dalai Lama is like almost unthinkable. And I know for a fact that he has received petitions from across the Tibetan Buddhist world, including some from inside Tibet in a confidential way. And then when we think of the Dalai Lama, it is important to think beyond the Tibetan people, because the Tibetan Buddhism covers a massive amount of space. From a nationhood perspective, it is confined to the Tibetan people, but from a religious, spiritual perspective, it goes way beyond the Tibetan borders. So I think there is a lot of stake, not just for the Tibetans, but also for entire community in these regions to make sure that the name Dalai Lama and the institution continues. So in some sense, The Dalai Lama institution is like the papal institution for the Tibetan Buddhist world. My hope is that, before his birthday, on July the 6th, His Holiness will issue a formal statement. Now, if my guess is right, and if he says that the continuity of the institution will remain, which means then there will be a new Dalai Lama after he's gone. Personally, I don't think it's going to work, because large part of the power of the institution and its mystique is precisely because of that system of finding a new child from the present Dalai Lama was born to a peasant family. His parents were uneducated, illiterate. That is the beauty of the system. Pension Lama that they have chosen, everybody calls the Chinese pension and false pension. Same thing will happen. The loyalty is to here, and nothing China does can actually shift that. They can suppress, they can ban. The current Dalai Lama's photographs is banned in Tibet. They can ban, they can force, but you can never change people's heart. What's in the heart belongs to the individual.
As he turns 90, the Dalai Lama's body grows frail, but his voice, his mission, his message remains unshaken. He has said he wants to live to 113 years. But more importantly, he wants the Tibetan identity, faith, and dream to outlive him. Tibetans wait. The world watches. China hovers. But the next Dalai Lama, if he or she is to be found, will come not from force but from faith.